In today's video, we're going to be talking about porches, specifically my front porch. If you've watched a lot of my videos, you've already noticed that we really utilize our front porch. Front porch living is common, I'm sure, throughout the world, but especially in the mountains of Appalachia. The front porch or the back porch or the side porch gets used a lot for many different activities. I'm going to kind of show you around my front porch at the end of this video, but first I was going to read to you a short piece by one of my dear friends, Jim Cassida. It's from his book, A Smoky Mountain Boyhood, Memories, Musings, and More. I will link down below, give you the link to purchase the book if you'd like to. It's a really great book and you'll enjoy it. But what I was going to read to you, the name of it is In Praise of Porches. One of many blessings folks living in the Smokies tend to take for granted is that they can enjoy their porches on balmy spring days, throughout the summer in early morning, and from late afternoon until bedtime, and well into autumn when Indian summers hold sway. With a fan or shade trees, even midday in the summer can be tolerable. Similarly, a flannel shirt or lightweight sweater makes fall evenings perfectly comfortable. Such is not the case everywhere, and the lengthy annual run of what might be styled the porch season in the high hills of the southern Appalachians is a real blessing. In today's world of air conditioning, near addiction to television or computer screens, and a seeming compulsion to be indoors, porches don't loom nearly as large in everyday life as was once the case. Yet I'd like to sing the praises of porches, and much of my tribute comes directly from countless wondrous hours spent on them, mostly on the ones at my boyhood home or that of my paternal grandparents. Of course, there were porches aplenty elsewhere, summertime courtships where I had neither the money nor the transportation to do anything but visit. They provided a welcome bit of privacy. Picking and grinning sessions on summer evenings, visits with friends or relatives, and much, much more. When visitors came a-calling, weather permitting, we adjourned to the porch overlooking the town and offering vistas of Fry Mountain, the head of Kirkland's Creek, and the beginning of the Alarka Range on the opposite side of the Tuckasegee River Valley. The porch was a grand place to be when thunderstorms threatened. On countless occasions when a good shower would have been most welcome, we watched rains falling on the opposite ridgeline, sometimes so heavy they hid Fry Mountain, with flashes of lightning momentarily brightening the sky. We seldom enjoyed the benefit of those evening showers because typical summer rain patterns brought rain from the southwest moving up the river. That porch was almost a second home to my sister. She would sing and rock for hours on end, and on one occasion when Daddy accidentally ran over a cat in the driveway, she pert nigh drove the rest of the household crazy with mournful tunes that in essence amounted to unending dirges. It was also a place to watch lightning bugs as light gave way to night, to observe goings-on in downtown Bryson City, or during the day to watch birds go about their business. A pair of screech owls that raised several generations of young in a huge white oak located nearby added to the overall appeal and ambiance, and during the summer there was always a chorus of grasshoppers, katydids, and jarflies as background music. Porches were a place for relaxation at day's end, but they also witnessed plenty of work. Indeed, quite often labor and rest went hand in hand. Sometimes a number of family members would gather to talk, but when they did so, more often than not, their hands were busy. The job might involve stringing and breaking beans for a run of cannon the next morning, shelling crowder peas or lima beans with the same end result in mind, peeling and quartering apples either for drying or canning, working up a bushel or two of corn, shucking, scrubbing away silks, then cutting from the cob for soup mix, cutting up okra, going through peaches beginning to go bad that Mom had bought for a song to make preserves, and the like. More often than not, a prelude of porch work was part of the overall process of canning. Occasionally, usually on a Sunday afternoon, there would be a run of hand-churned ice cream. I don't ever remember doing this at home, but it happened periodically at the residence of Grandpa Joe and Grandma Minnie, usually when a bunch of cousins from out of town visited, or maybe when a lot of us got together for a family meal. Most memorable of all, for me, were porch sitting sessions with no one involved except Grandpa Joe and me. Sometimes this came when we had been placed in verbal exile. That is to say, Grandma had told us in no uncertain terms that we needed to get out of the house. Grandpa would mutter something about they not wanting us underfoot, although his application of a pronoun in place of Grandma Minnie's name, Minnie, never eased the brunt of her ready wrath, and we would retreat to the porch. It was a great setting, looking out over the river and close enough to hear the stream whisper and murmur as its waters rolled by in their long journey to the Little Tennessee and mighty Mississippi rivers before eventually entering the Gulf of Mexico. There he would take his throne, a comfortable rocking chair made of locust and with a padded bottom. Before long, I would have induced him to share tales of yesteryear. Grandpa was a natural gifted storyteller, and it didn't take much, just a request for a rerun of some oft-told tale, such as the time he shot a painter, cougar, and magic would unfold. I could sit enchanted for hours, doing little other than offering a bit of encouragement or tendering an occasional expression of rapt interest as he relived what was clearly a rugged but exciting time in his life. Add to that enjoyment of an icy watermelon or just a cold glass of water while resting after hours of hoeing corn, and the overall picture emerges of Porches being a special retreat, a tiny piece of paradise. They were the perfect place for so many things: family gatherings, courtships, music, relaxation, rest between periods of work, enjoying the soothing movements of a rocking chair, sensing and savoring the rhythm of a gentle rain, and more. Porches were a place where you could be at peace with the world, and as singer-songwriter Tracy Lawrence suggested years ago in a country hit, "If the world had a front porch," they were a place to reduce stress, solve problems, and slow down life's often hectic pace. So I hope you enjoyed that little piece from Jim Cassida, and as I said, I'll link to the book down below. Makes me think of all the front porches, the back porches, and the side porches that I've been on in my lifetime. Ones that play heavy in my mind, similar to Jim's recollections, is my Granny Gazzie's. At her little house, there was a front porch. That's where you went in the front door, a little small porch that barely had a little step up. And then there was a side porch on the side of the house, and you could go through the house to get to it, but for some reason that door was never open, so you went outside to go around, and that was the porch. It was kind of a long, more narrow porch that all the grandkids went to. So on Sundays, the grown-ups would go to that front porch, and they would be sitting and talking, sometimes singing, laughing, catching up with each other, and us kids would go around to the side porch where there was a swing and a few chairs, and we would sit there and talk about whatever kids talked about in those days. And then there was even another porch on the other side of the house, but it was kind of a little small back porch, and it was more of a place where Granny Gazzie might store her wash pans or things like that, maybe her Crocs or old jars, those kind of things. So those porches really play a huge role in my memories when I think of porches. And oh, to be able to go back one time and sit there on the front porch with Uncle Bars, with Aunt Pearl, with Uncle Lucky, with any of the people, aunts and uncles visiting from up north when they were there. It always seemed extra special if they got to come and spend a week or two at home in the summer, for vacation, or maybe it was at Christmas. It just a really special time. Those porches were also used, as Jim mentioned, for, whether it was shucking corn, shelling peas, breaking up beans, those kind of things. On a daily basis they were used. The same thing here at my house. We love to come out on the porch and sit and read a book. We love to listen to the rain. But I also like to come out here and break up beans or shell peas or those kind of things. Porches played a huge role in Appalachia in days gone by, whether it was just at the end of a long day, sitting on the porch, reliving what you had done that day, maybe holding a grandbaby, maybe singing a song, maybe just sitting there listening to night come on, listening to the katydids, listening to the sounds of night, and also seeing the fireflies, lightning bugs we would call them, seeing those, and just listening to the peace of the world. I would say they still play that same role in Appalachia today. Jim's right. Other distractions, whether it be TV, computers, or air conditioning, all drive us inside a lot, but I still think the porch looms large in the fabric of Appalachia. Now, when I was talking about porches, my memories of my porches, you might have noticed I did not talk about one at Pap and Granny's. That's because they didn't have a porch. We didn't have a porch when I was growing up. In the front of the house where you would come in, Granny calls it the back of the house. It's the front of the house to me, always has been. But there's little steps. There was little steps, concrete steps, in fact, was all there was. So there was like, concrete block steps, I should say. So there was maybe 2 steps to get into the house. That was it. There was no porch. Now, I sat on those steps lots of times and did stuff. In the back of the house, where there needed to be a porch was never built. So if you opened that door and went out, you had to jump about 4 feet. It was 4 feet, 3 or 4 feet off the ground. So there was no porch there. When Pat built the house, they run out of money for the porch to be built. They were just anxious to get inside the house and to be there and not be renting anymore. And just over the years, one thing and another took the money to build that porch. Granny used to tease me and tell me that one of the things was the braces that was in my mouth, that was her front porch. So there's just various reasons for whatever that Granny never got that back porch until after I was married and gone. We were all married and gone. Well, Paul was probably still in college at that time. But anyway, then Pap and Matt built her a porch. So that was a glorious day. So she does have a porch now, but it's not one that I grew up with. So it's funny how those kind of things happen. But when Matt and I built our house, Matt and Pap actually built it, I wanted a porch. So we have this nice front porch that I really enjoy, and we use it for so many things. And now I'm going to kind of take you along the porch and show you some of the things. In one of my recent videos that I did, I do a lot of them on the porch. You notice someone asked about one of the things behind me and asked if I would tell. And then I said, well, that's a real story. I need to tell you that story. And then the more I thought about it, I thought, well, there's so many things on this front porch that I've got lots of stories. So if you're interested in hearing those stories, stick around. Here on the end of the porch, if you can see, we have this barbed wire. Not long ago, someone asked me about this, and I did not realize what they were talking about. In my mind, they said a piece of wood. I thought they were talking about this piece of wood. That's actually part of the fence post that this barbed wire was on at one time when it was actually being used to enclose animals. They were actually, I think, talking about this piece of wood down here near the bottom of the screen that you can see. And I had just forgot that was there. What that is, they were wanting to know what that was. What that piece of wood is, Matt put that there so that then he laid another piece of wood this way on top of it to make like a table. It was actually a shooting table. He did that when he was shooting in his gun one year, getting ready for deer season, for hunting season, and he was shooting this way. So he made a table. It stood on the porch so that he could shoot back into the back of the house, into the back of the woods, the bank there, where it's safe and there is no chance of anyone getting hurt, no people beyond that. So that was what that was. But the barbed wire, we actually found that on a trip one time up in the woods here on our property. And it was, it's just woods today, but at one time they obviously had animals in there. Whether that was my family or whether that was somebody before them, I'm not sure. I would be guessing that it was my family. It was something that they had done. But anyway, it was just such a treasure and there in the woods, so we brought it home and it's been hanging on our porch ever since. As you might guess, the porch swing is where we spend a lot of time. The girls especially love the swing, and they come out here and read their books or talk or play music or whatever, but we all enjoy swinging while we're sitting on the porch. But when we first moved into the house and first had the front porch, we didn't have a porch swing. We had this weird kind of swing. I don't even know where it come from. Maybe Miss Cindy got it for us. Someone had give it to her, or she picked it up at a yard sale. But it was like a kind of a cloth swing thing, and only one person could fit in it. So, well, I say one person at that time, and some little toddlers. Me and the girls could get in it all together. But it wasn't like a porch swing. Well, I'm a very frugal person. So I'm not someone that goes out and buys stuff just on a whim, or that I don't like to spend a lot of money. I'm just very frugal. That's just how I am. So it's unusual for me to go buy something, especially in those days where you had such a hard time. Matt worked and I stayed home with the girls. That was the decision that we made, how we wanted to live our lives. But with living on one income can be tough, So you need to be frugal, so that helped me out in those days. But one day, sometimes this is how I do things. Even though I'm frugal, if something occurs to me that I really want and need, then I decide that I should get it no matter what. I don't know if that's how it should be or not, but that's kind of the person I am. So one day I decided I wanted a porch swing. At that time, I think I'd seen a sign or something in Marble, which is just up the road from here between Murphy and Andrews, and I just thought, I'm going to get a porch swing. And I didn't care how much it cost or anything, and I went, and I think it did cost $60, so it wasn't like that much. Now, this has been years ago, but I went in there and bought my porch swing, put it in the car, and come home, and then told Maddie need to put it up. So when I think of all the joy the porch swing has brought us over the years, sometimes I realize sometimes it's necessary to spend money for all that enjoyment. Sometimes I'm frugal to a fault. I hurt myself to be frugal and do without things that would benefit us or that would help enrich my life. So when I look at the porch swing, I'm reminded of that story of the day I decided I'm buying a porch swing today, and I went and bought it, which was totally unusual for me to do. All of us really enjoy old things that really don't have any value to anyone else. We just like them because they're old. In days gone by, people didn't have dumpsters or a recycling center, so what did? They found an area on their land and they made that their dump. Now, people were very resourceful in those days, so anything that could be used, they mostly kept, but there was some stuff they discarded. Well, one of our favorite things to do is hunt in those old dumps, and over the years, we've had several people invite us to come to their land and dig in their dumps, and then there's some dumps on the land that surrounds our house, so that's one of our favorite things to do. So we have a lot of those old finds, kind of like the barbed wire back there on our porch, that we really enjoy. Anything old. Well, one of the things I was going to show you is this old cast iron teapot. Now, it's really lovely. One of my friends gave me this because he knew of that, and I would worry about reseasoning it and fixing it, but when you look down at the very bottom, it's rusted through all the way around, so you really couldn't use it anymore. But isn't it wonderful to think about who used it, where it come from, who was excited the first time they bought it, what they did with it? Such wonderful things. Those are the kind of things we like to put on the porch and throughout our house, really. Several folks have asked about the rocking chairs on the porch. They want to know if they're the old wooden chairs that Corey and Katie talk about. They're not. They actually come from a friend, Bill Green. Back when Matt and I first moved into our house, we literally moved in 3 days before I had Corey and Katie, when I was supposed to have them. So we barely got in time to have the girls and be able to bring them home from the hospital to their home. And once he's seen this big porch, he gifted us those chairs. He was a friend of Miss Cindy's, Matt's mother, and we've had them ever since. They're sturdy, good chairs. I don't have any clue where he got them. I have no memory of that. But he gifted us those chairs. He said a porch like this deserved to have rocking chairs, and he's no longer with us. He's been gone a long time ago. But those chairs that we have today that we still enjoy, that I sit in to do so many of my videos, is because of the generosity of Bill Green. Another thing that people ask me about is the folk art painting here that says, "If the daisies only told." Years ago, when the girls were little, I did a lot of folk art painting. Angels were kind of my thing. I painted lots of angels and used to go and sell them and do the whole like craft circuit, that kind of thing. And that's one that's left over from those days. I seen that saying, I don't remember now if I seen it in a book or in a magazine or what, but if the daisies only told. So to me that meant just the same thing, if trees could talk, you know, the things you hear about people, if walls could talk, those inanimate kind of objects, or even flowers or trees, what would they tell us if they could talk? What have they seen? You know, what have they witnessed? So that saying really spoke to me, so that's why I put it on the painting, and that's probably why that's one of the paintings that I ended up keeping myself. I have a few others from those days that I kept, but that's one of them. Also, when I see that and think of daisies, I always think about my Papa Wade. Before he died, he told my mother, said, "Oh, don't worry about me when I'm gone, just throw a few daisies on my grave." So I think about him. He said that in a joking manner. He was a real character with twinkling eyes that you never forgot, or you'd never forget if you'd seen them. Anyway, so that makes me think of him too. A lot of our porch has some of the craft things. Over the years, lots of various crafts we would do, especially when the girls was little. I was always trying to get them in to be creative and to enjoy. They were creative. It's probably, you know Katie, that's her full-time living, is being a creative. But anyway, so our porch is kind of filled with those. Here's some of the little, I was going to show you some of the little rocks. Over the years, we would collect rocks from the creek, and they would paint, whether they were just polka dotted. This one you can see Katie's put her name on. This is a funny one. I don't know if, I'm thinking this was Corey that did this one. So it says Ashley Furniture number 00, Johnny Chastain. So Johnny Chastain is a local boy that Paul and I went to school with, but he also drove a car. We live very close to a dirt track, a racetrack, and when Corey and Katie were young, that's where they wanted to be. They loved to go to the racetrack every weekend with their daddy, and that was Johnny Chastain was one of their favorite drivers. So it's funny. I should take that to him. He has a shop in town, and give it to him and tell him how it's been on my porch for at least 15 years. So that's kind of funny. One more rock from those days. This is Ghost Town. It's hard to see, but there's a hat and a gun and then a little building. So I'm thinking this was probably at the time. Ghost Town is now closed down, if you're familiar with ghost towns in Maggie Valley, North Carolina. But at this time was one of the times it had opened back up for a brief period of time. And Papa Tony and Nana and me and Corey and Katie went one day, and they were really impressed with Ghost Town. So I'm sure that's where this rock come from. Here's one more rock from those days of painting rocks, and it's faded over the years, so it's got G-O-D, God, and then set your crosshairs. So set your crosshairs on God. I don't know which girl come up with that one, but that one's pretty good. So this area of the porch continues with the creative vibe. This shelf is actually made out of barn wood, and Miss Cindy gifted me this years and years ago. I have no clue where she got it, but I love it. It's been hanging right here ever since. The things that are on here, there's an old Coke bottle that we found somewhere. This is you see knots in logs. Well, that's an actual knot, or in a tree that come out of the actual knot, the whole piece of it that's come out. Stars are my favorite shape. So this star, I'm not sure where I got it. It's actually still got a price tag on the back of it. It says $2. Maybe I got it at the folk school, at John C. Campbell Folk School. Sometimes in past, when they had their fall festival, there'd be a gentleman there that sold wooden toys and wooden objects, wooden kind of things you could decorate for ornaments, for Christmas ornaments. So that might be where it come from, but it's been sitting here for a long time. But stars are my favorite shape. Here's another piece of a relic we've carried in from somewhere, a little piece of metal with holes. I'm not sure what it was or where it come from, but here it sits. I think there's another knot out of a log. I think Granny gifted me this little girl years ago. She bought it for me, probably at the dollar store or Dollar Tree. And it's one of those things that you can hide your key in. There's no key in it. But anyway, sits there. This kind of painting back here that you can see. Let's see if I can move it. Put it closer up to you there so you can see it. So when Matt and Pap used to build houses, that's what they did. They built houses. They would build the cabinets and everything. So there's lots of scrap wood things. And we would often go to visit them wherever they were at on their work site, and we would bring home a lot of that scrap wood. They used it for various different things. Of course, if it was a large piece, they could use it, to actually build something else. But a lot of times we would bring home those scrap pieces that somehow something had went wrong, or maybe it was the ends off a 2x4 or whatever, and then we would bring them home and we would decorate. We would create with them. Corey and Katie would call it creating. So we would paint. So this is one. This one's been, you can tell, piece cut out of it there around it. It looks like almost like it was supposed to be a cabinet door. It's kind of broke right there, so who knows what happened or why it ended up in the scrap pile, but it did. So we brought it home. Corey painted this picture when she was, really little, probably, I would guess 6 or 7 or something like that, and it was just lovely. So it's been on my porch ever since then. It's been a long time, but it's just one of my favorite things that she painted when she was really small, and just from a piece of old scrap wood that we got off of one of Pap and Matt's home sites. Almost every year a little bird builds its nest behind that too, and then I wait for the babies to be gone and then I clean it out. So that's usually there's a nest behind that every year. Now this is what started the whole thought for me to do this video, was this man here. If someone asked me said, tell me, what is that man behind you? And I said, well, there's actually a really cool story about him, so I need to do a video about it and tell you. But then that led me to thinking about the whole porch and all the stories that are contained on my porch. So this man is like the Green Man, if you're familiar with the Green Man, and kind of a representation of the forest and of nature and all that. Well, Miss Cindy's, my mother-in-law's friend, Robin, he works with clay, and he made him. This was like his prototype. He made him, and he wanted to know how it would weather out in the weather, if it was outside, if someone hung it on a tree or hung it in their garden or whatever. So where he lives, he put it out on a tree down the road or near his house, wherever, I'm not sure where, but anyway, he put it outside on a tree to see how it would hold up. So then if he decided to keep making them and selling them, then he would have, he would be able to justify to people, yes, you can put it in your garden and it'll hold up well or whatever. So he did that. Well, someone stole it. Someone stole the man. He was gone. And Robin was like, oh, I can't believe that. Can't believe somebody stole it. But he wasn't going to be deterred. He made another one, and he put that one out so that to see. He still needed to find out, how will it hold up in the weather. Well, whoever stole him brought him back and then took the second one. They liked the second one better. So it's just a funny story. And then somehow Miss Cindy ended up with it. Robin gave him to her, and then she gifted me with him, and he's been hanging on the porch ever since. But what a great story. Sometimes I think the old man, I wish I knew where he'd been and what he'd seen, whoever took him and then brought him back. It's just a very unique story for a piece of art that I'm thankful to have from Robin. Just below the shelf, here's another one of the cabinet door mishaps or whatever went wrong from Pap and Matt's job site where we've painted it. The girls put stencils. It's got stars, my favorite stars, and polka dots on it. And then we have some little rocks. We love rocks. I had people ask in the last video why we had rocks on the porch. I could not even begin to show you all the rocks on this porch. Katie and Corey both have been rock hounds since they knew how to pick up a rock. Well, now Katie is a lapidary artist. That's what makes her living. So she's got rocks. You just wouldn't believe the rocks around my house. So there's always rocks, whether it's on the front porch. There's piles of them back there that I didn't show you behind the swing. They're sitting around on the edges. They're sometimes in my kitchen, sometimes on my counter, sometimes in the kitchen floor. There are rocks everywhere around this house. That's just the way it is when you live with a lapidary artist. But here's some of the ones that I've probably picked up myself to show you from the creek. There's a little bitty one. Another thing about finding, if you go out looking for treasures in dumps and stuff, a lot of times you'll find little pieces of pottery. So we bring those home. So we have those. That would be worthless to anybody else, but it means something to us because at one time that was a plate and somebody ate off of it. Isn't that wonderful to think about? Probably one of the most useful things on our front porch is this fish cooker. It's what we call it, a fish cooker. It's actually just a propane stove with 2 eyes, and we use it so much in the summertime to do our canning on, whether it's water bathing or pressure canning. It's just lovely to be able to come out here and do it on the porch and not worry about heating up the house. We also use it if there's a time we're cooking a big meal and there's not enough stove eyes in the house, then we come out here and maybe fry the steak or fry the deer meat or whatever. Matt really enjoys cooking on it, so sometimes he'll come out here and cook breakfast or fry whatever kind of meat he's making if he's making supper that night. But it is very, very useful. So this is one of the 2 old wooden chairs. The other chair is currently at Miss Cindy's. And if you don't know the story about that one, I'll let Corey and Katie tell you that story. So I'll link to their video down below. But I hope you've enjoyed hanging out with me on the porch today and hearing the stories that my porch has to tell. I hope you'll share the porch stories you have in the comments below. And I hope you'll keep dropping back by and helping me celebrate Appalachia.